Hello everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to Green Side Up. I'm here in my little tunnel today because one of my subscribers, David, has asked me to cover some strengthening tips that I used on this tunnel and mentioned on another YouTuber's post about how these tunnels could be made to last if you just strengthen them, put some work in them, because they're less than a couple of £100, and for what they are, they're very good and incredibly handy and useful. In March, this one will be 6 years old and it's still going strong. You know, I'll probably get another couple of years after that, so that's 8 years for a polytunnel that's less than a couple of £100. And at the end of the day, what will fail on this tunnel is this cover. This is my third type of this type of tunnel, and this has been by far the best because of these. It's got 3 ridge poles going the full length. That makes it incredibly strong on its own. What I add to it makes it even stronger. So let's get on with it. Now obviously, with this being nearly 6 years old, I haven't got video of me putting this up, and I'm not about to make one either because it's already up. Well, I have got some photographs that I took at the time which will show you some of the key points, and I can use my voiceover on top of those photos to show you how it was constructed and basically how it was strengthened. I will video a couple of little points in here about how I made the doors and the door frames, but I'll also hopefully show that on video on the photographs as well. So we'll get on with that now. So at the very top of the door frame, I've cut a chunk of timber out so that the actual hoop will sit in that bit of wood. It's just basically half that bit of timber at the top has just been cut out. It could fall forward if it wasn't cable tied to that bit of wood, and you can see that cable tie there on the left hand side. There's a couple there. They've been there 6 years and they've lasted very well. And then the only other cut on that piece of wood at the top is just an angled cut so that it roughly resembles the shape of the hoop. So it's no complex cuts. It's no geometry lessons to learn how to cut it. I've just cut a chunk out so that the frame sits in the top of that post, and I've angled off the remaining of it so it fits around the hoop. So to say, it's not difficult. I'll give you the wobbly close-up of it now as well, just so you can see it a bit closer. So here we go, a wobbly freehand close-up. You can just see I've just cut out half that bit of wood at the top to allow the frame to sit in it, and then I've just cut the top of the piece of the wood just to match the shape of the hoop, and then I've cable tied around the hoop into the bit of wood with a couple of extra strong cable ties just to hold it in place, and that's it. It's as simple as that. At the very base of that frame, you can see here that the paving stones come up to the edge of that bit of frame, and then my bed edge starts. I've done that deliberately. Just that's how I determined the width of my door frame was basically 2 paving slabs wide. These are the 18-inch wide squares, the very thin ones that you can get, and that's what determined the width of my wooden frame for the doorway, so that I could get a central path down right the way through this tunnel. So that's that little detail there. Okay, so here's the front of this polytunnel, and you can see just off to the edges there are 2 white zips. These zips will fail very quickly if you start to use them, and it had a roll-up door, a bit like a tent or a gazebo, and the idea was you roll this up, unzipped it and rolled it up and used it for the day, and then roll it down again and peg it down. But it's such a faff, and having had 2 of these types of tunnels before, so this is my 3rd one of this type, I know how flimsy the zips are. And you can see the one on the right's broken already. So what I did was, once the frame was up, and you can see that in the pictures, and I put the cover on, I made a rough framework of a door that fitted inside that wooden door framework and put hinges on it, and then I closed the door shut and screwed it shut so it wasn't going to move. I then escaped from the tunnel through one of those zip doors, came outside, and then I stapled all around the door frame, the cover directly onto the door frame and all the way around the door. And then eventually, once all that was done and secure, I then went around the door with a sharp blade and cut the cover. We're going to have a quick look at the closer detail of that. I've taken some trim off so that you can see it at the top of the door. We're going to have a look at that and we'll see. So the door frame runs underneath this trim and underneath this trim here and across the top. The door runs here and underneath this trim. I've taken these two bits of trim off, so you can see I've stapled all along the door. I put hundreds in, I wanted to make sure it was secure, and the same all the way down this side of this bit of door, all the way down and down here as well. And then around the door frame itself, hundreds of staples, and then I simply took a Stanley knife and cut around the door, and there is the door, to loosen it. Because the door was mounted already, it was in position, and all I had to do was climb back through the roll-up zip-up door, unscrew the door because I screwed it to the frame when I was stapling it, I released the screw, and I had a working operational door. And then I just trimmed it out just to tidy it up and cover those staples, and it also further compresses the cover onto the frame as well, so it keeps it. You can see all these are rusted. If I left this exposed now, these would just all fall to bits, the cover would come loose, but with the trim on, it holds it in place. So, you know, it's a bit of scrap wood. I mean, I think some of this timber's off pallets, so, you know, it's done the job. And as I say, in March, this is 6 years old. So there we go, that's a simple thing. So putting those door frames on either ends strengthens the whole tunnel. It stops the side to side motion, which you will get once you put this frame up, and you'll see it before you even got the cover on, that it will rock side to side. But if you put those door frames on either end, that will help eliminate a lot of that. So now we just need to work with the base of the tunnel to strengthen that. Now your traditional tunnel, your more expensive one, the plastic goes all the way over, and you dig a trench about this deep and about this wide, and the cover comes off the edge of the hoop, down into the trench, along the trench, away from the tunnel and up again, and it's held down with soil. So you have about an extra 3 foot of plastic. As soon as the hoop hits the ground, you have an extra 3 foot of plastic which is buried, and that holds the tunnel firm. You can use base rails as well, which is another way of fixing a tunnel down. But with these tunnels, once you've got your frame on the ground, and you have a ground bar on these frames, and once you've got the cover over, there's that much spare plastic, which is nothing. I mean, you can't bury that in the ground. You can, but it doesn't do anything. And I have seen these tunnels, I've seen 2 of them on this site blow away because they haven't strengthened the tunnel, and because there's only that much of plastic to hold in the ground. So what I've done here is I've built 2 raised beds, and as you'll see from the pictures which I'm about to start showing now, I made the frame up, and then I made up the sides of the tunnel, and I put a batten on the bottom of the board. The frame actually sits on the batten on the board that is the edge of the bed. And there's a reason for that, because under tension these polytunnels will start to sink, and they're not very tall to start off with. These I think are 6 foot maximum, and you're sort of looking at sort of 3 to 4 foot at the edge of the tunnel as a stand-up space. It's not a great deal. So if it starts to sink, you start to lose height, and that's no good. So by putting them on a batten that's on the edge of the bed board, and you make your whole bed around, and then you stake the bed into the ground, I then cable tied the frame to that bed board and to those edges. So now, with a staked bed in the ground, which is solid, as we all know, we've all built them before, the polytunnel is now anchored to something, and then I simply stapled the bottom of the edge of the cover to the boards outside, and then ran a batten around the outside as well. to further hold that on, so it's all nice and secure at the bottom. And you'll see that detail in the pictures. I'll zoom in so that you can see those details, and I'll put some words up in text so you understand exactly what's going on. Now the stakes I used when they're 2 foot into the ground to really anchor it, and then I cut the tops off at a reasonable height so that later I could use them as the posts for benches, which is what I've got in here already, and many of you have seen. And they're raise up benches, so they get out of the way and I can use the bed underneath. But it means I can do work in this polytunnel on a bench, or I can grow things in there, so it's multifunctional. So it's all nice and strong, the base is all nice and secured. As I say, in March, this is 6 years old, and it's, you know, it's still going strong, and if anything goes, it'll be the cover. So that's about it really. That's how I strengthen this tunnel, and how it works for me, and I would highly recommend it. I mean, there are plenty of other variations you can do, and you may choose to do yourself, but that's how I've done this one, and how I would advise other people to approach it, using those methods that I've got, that I've used, and yeah, go from there. So you can just see the battens here at the base of the tunnel on the outside that actually hold the cover directly onto those boards at the back of the beds inside the tunnel. That just keeps everything tidy. Okay, just one more thing worth noticing. These tunnels, these blowaway tunnels as I call them, have these side vents, and you can open them up like little windows, and they've got mesh screens, but as you can see, they very quickly fall apart and fail. My advice is not to use them at all. Use your door on either end, simply because the flaps on the outside hold down with Velcro, and they very quickly get dirty, and if you've been using them and forgotten to close them, you will find at some stage that the Velcro just does not work anymore, and that fly screening does break apart. You can see there, that's all broken there, that's all broken and ripped, so that's a failing. And if I zoom you down here, you'll be able to see a bit clearer down here. I've had to safety pin this one up just to keep it closed. So there we go, word of warning, just leave them closed and use your doors. So here's the frame assembled, and you can see I've just started to put the patterns on the boards and put the boards underneath the frame to lift it up. Is from the other end here, same view. And here's the frame now. We're now mounted on the boards, and we've staked those boards in. Those stakes are 2 foot in the ground and cut off at optimum level to make a bench. And here's the front view. Worth noting here that I've actually taken part of the metal frame away to allow for the doorway, and the doorway frame is in place, and that's all cut in around the hoop, and here's it is with the cover on, and the door in place as detailed earlier in there, and you can see the battens down the side there. So that's it, the tunnel sort of completed. And here is a view of the finished tunnel inside. You can see I've put the bed edges on, so I've got 2 complete beds, and I've started to lay the footpath. So there we have it. This tunnel is 6 meters by 3 meters. There are various sizes going down. I'll put a couple of links in the description to show you which one it is. And yeah, if you fancy a cheap tunnel on your allotment or in your back garden, this is certainly a good place to start, as long as you do those strengthening things. It does take a little bit of extra work and a little bit of, I suppose, a little bit of extra money in buying the timber to secure it all. But if you can source timber cheaply, then I heartily recommend it, because as I say, this is coming on 6 years old now. This cover will certainly do 8 if I don't replace it beforehand, which I'm considering making some alterations to this. So yeah, it's certainly worthwhile doing it, and for the growing space it gives you, and the flexibility through the year to, like I've done here, I've changed all this into a bench area to do some painting of my boards when we don't dig raised beds outside at the minute. So it's so flexible, and I think everyone's got to have one really if you're a gardener, and you've got to have a polytunnel. And if you don't want to go to full hog, I mean, because a tunnel this size from one of the top manufacturers will probably cost you somewhere £500 upwards, so you're looking at less than a couple of £100 for one of these. So, and you can go shorter as well, so smaller tunnels, but do consider it and have a look at it and have a think. But that's it for today. That's pretty much all the tips I've got about how to strengthen one of these tunnels. I hope it's coherent enough for you. If it isn't, there's you can ask a question below and I'll clarify it and do what's necessary, so that make sure you fully understand what I've done here, because I want you to start off on the right foot if you get in a tunnel. So there we go, that's it for today. Look after yourselves everyone, please stay safe. I'll see you in a couple of days. Ta-ra now.